All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Morris here with AMG, and tonight you guys just get me. I'm the only one here tonight, so we're going to make it a fun night. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I do believe that the diets that we currently partake in this country are not very nutrient rich. They're calorie dense, but not very nutrient rich. So my goal today is to kind of open your eyes and kind of, tease you a bit on whether or not vitamins and minerals are a good part of your diet and whether or not you should be supplementing based on what you learned tonight. I know a lot of patients always ask the question, should I take vitamins? Should I take minerals? And it's a tough one to ask because then you never know how much to take, who should take, who shouldn't take, and all these different things. So hopefully I can clear up some of the myth behind and some of the questions you guys may have with regards to vitamins and minerals in general, and we will start. Hold on, my screen is giving a little bit of an issue here. All right, here we go. Okay, so vitamins and minerals, what you should know. So let's start off with the history of vitamins. And this is actually news to me when I did my own research. It initially was found in the early 1900s when scientists found certain deficiencies in the diet led to different maladies people were having back then. And a Polish biochemist named Funk, as you can see here, was the first one to coin the term vitamin, which got shortened later to vitamin. So that's where we get the term vitamin from. Now, it wasn't until the mid 20th century when synthetic versions of these particular nutrients or substances was distilled down and was made available to us in supplement form to help address those who had specific deficiencies, whether it was because of allergies to certain foods that may have it, or just not being able to get enough based on your current or the diet that they had back then. Dietary minerals, that's the other side of the equation. Going way back to ancient times, people first became aware of the health benefits of minerals like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, all those different minerals. And in the early 1900s is when it was initially discovered that mineral deficiencies, just like vitamin deficiencies, can cause health problems. As we moved down in the years, we got to the mid 20th when, just like we saw in the vitamins, synthetic minerals and supplements became a lot more widespread to the quote unquote billion-dollar industry we see right now with supplements and vitamins that we have on the market. This actually was born out of the need for better supplementation because modern diets, especially nowadays, we do see a lack in certain minerals because of the processing that goes into a lot of foods that we eat. If you think of milk, for example, after going to pasteurization, you can lose a lot of the vitamin D that's in milk. So you find a lot of these foods end up being what we call fortified, where we actually have to pump those minerals and those vitamins back into those foods. So the idea of taking supplements was just born out of the fact that our diets now, because of the way foods are processed, are not as nutrient rich as we would like it to be. So what are vitamins? They are actually organic compounds. And as you will see as we go through each one, because I did pick out a number of them here to go through them in depth, just to kind of give you an idea as to what each does. They do have specific functions within the body. Now, the good thing about vitamins is that we need them in pretty small amounts in order to have optimal functioning. Now, those of us who have deficiencies will need more than others. Okay, now they must be obtained from food, or if food is an issue, supplementation. And we have 13 essential vitamins, and they are fat soluble and water soluble. The fat soluble ones here are A, D, E, and K, and the water soluble ones are the B complex and C. Now, what that means is fat soluble vitamins are stored within your fatty tissue, so they actually last a lot longer in your system than the water soluble ones, where there is very small amount of storage. However, the majority of it is passed through the kidneys And that's why we need to supplement or make sure we get adequate amounts of those on a more regular basis than our fat-soluble vitamins. So you're going to see here, each vitamin has a specific role for maintaining good health in the body. Minerals, as opposed to vitamins being organic, minerals are inorganic. They're the ones you see on your periodic table, those of us who are science nerds and buffs. And these are required also to help maintain homeostasis and keep the body healthy. You can get it from food or supplements. Two main categories that we see with minerals: macro minerals and then the trace minerals. Your macro minerals are the ones you want a lot more of in your diet, and the trace minerals are the ones where you can get by on very, very minute amounts. And we have I listed here some of the macro minerals that we definitely want to keep an eye on: calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. And those trace minerals, though needed in smaller amounts, are pretty important, as you will see as I go through the slides and try to tackle some of these in depth. So we're going to start with vitamin A. Everyone knows vitamin A, right? Mom always said, you take vitamin A for your eyes, which is true. So it is a fat-soluble vitamin, and it's primarily found in two forms. You have the retinol form, which is the pre-formed vitamin A, and the carotenoid form, which is a pro-vitamin A. That's the one that your body turns into the actual retinol. So those are two forms of vitamin A that we have. Now, the foods which give you a lot of vitamin A are, of course, carrots, leafy green vegetables. You can also get the carotenoids from things like green peppers, red peppers, orange, those bell peppers, good source as well. And animal sources have tons of vitamin A, eggs, especially the yolks, and liver products. Now, if you're deficient in vitamin A, that can lead to vision problems, because what we know is that vitamin A itself, the carotenoids, are the ones that are good for the macular health of the eye. So patients who have vitamin A deficiencies or don't get adequate amounts of vitamin A can often have difficulty with their vision. And it's good to know that vitamin A is also important for a healthy immune system. Now, as with everything, there are contraindications to taking anything. So high doses of vitamin A can actually be very toxic to the liver. Now, when we say high doses, is when you go above and beyond the recommended daily allowance, which is the RDA, and you do that for an extended period of time. So we're talking months, because vitamin A does accumulate in fat tissue as well as the liver tissue. And what happens is, the more vitamin A you have, it is actually a direct toxin to the cells in the liver. So it's important to note that. Although it's good, just be very careful with how much you take in. At the bottom here, I just put there a little bit of information on the recommended daily amount of vitamin A, which is about 900 to 300 micrograms per day. So it's important to kind of, when you read the labels on your vitamins, you know exactly what you're getting. Vitamin B. Now, we're going to go through a series of the B vitamins, 1, 2, 3, 6, and 12, which are the main ones. And they all are water soluble. They're good vitamins, water soluble. They have a crucial role in energy metabolism. You know how most people say they take B complex for energy? Well, it is true. So they do play a really good role in the body's ability to metabolize and create and get energy. Now, B1 is called thiamine. A lot of foods have it: whole grains, legumes, meat, fish, even sunflower seeds. And I put here fortified cereals because, like I said, as we process certain foods, some of these vitamins can get leached out. So we fortify the foods by adding those back in. Now, when you look at thiamine on a whole, when you're deficient in thiamine, you can have a disease called beriberi. And symptoms of beriberi are fatigue, weakness, and even nerve damage, because the B vitamins, by and large, they do play a good role in a very good role in nerve health or neuronal health. Now, we can also see an issue with thiamine being low in patients who have alcoholism. So we do know excessive amounts of alcohol over time does lead to B1 or thiamine deficiency. And there's a special name for that called Wernicke's-Korsakoff syndrome. And what happens to those individuals with the long or the extended amount of alcoholism, which does lead to a reduction in thiamine for two reasons: one, naturally through that process, and two, because people who imbibe a lot of alcohol, their diets really aren't the best. So they're not getting as much of those B vitamins as they should. And B1 is important because those who have Wernicke's-Korsakoff tend to have confusion, ataxia, and vision issues. Now, some contraindications to using thiamine, the high doses of thiamine can actually cause skin rashes. You can see some nausea, and there are other neurological side effects that can happen. Now, it is good to note that people with kidney disease and those who take other medications should avoid high doses of B1. It's not because B1 damages the kidney, it's if you already have a pre-existing decreased function of the kidney, you should be very careful with how much vitamin B you take in, because remember, it's passed out through the kidneys. So if the kidney isn't filtering very well, you're going to have it. You may have issues with excessive amounts of intake of B1. Recommended amount, 1.2 to 1.5 milligrams per day of vitamin B1, which is thiamine. Now let's talk B2, riboflavin. Once again, water soluble. Necessary for two important enzymes in the body, which are required for energy production, as we saw. You can see that theme with the B vitamins. Riboflavin also helps to maintain healthy levels of homocysteine. Now, we bring up homocysteine because some of you may or may not know that homocysteine is important for cardiovascular health, meaning high levels of homocysteine does increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. Why? Elevated homocysteine actually increases the risk of clotting in the arteries or those vessels. So it's important to make sure that having good levels of B vitamins, especially riboflavin, can help reduce homocysteine levels. Some foods that have really good sources of riboflavin or B2 are milk, liver, almonds, spinach. All those are good sources of B2. Now, if you get a vitamin or if you get this supplement over the counter, it is important to note that overexposure to light can deactivate riboflavin itself. So that's why, and I put here, milk, is commonly stored in opaque, plastic or cardboard containers. But even a really good vitamin, if you get one, should be in an opaque bottle, or if it is glass, should be a darkened bottle. Anything to reduce the light from impacting the actual vitamins in that bottle. We have been, we know that we can use B2 actually as an orange-red food color additive. So it's a more natural way to color your food. Now, contraindications, high doses of B2 can cause diarrhea, itching, and just like with all the B vitamins, other side effects could include neurological side effects as well. Recommended amount, we do recommend patients get 1.3 to 1.7 milligrams per day. Now, as a side note, riboflavin, because it's a B vitamin that's good for neuronal health, we do actually recommend patients who suffer with chronic migraines or chronic headaches to get on a good B2 or vitamin that's rich in riboflavin, because it has been shown to help at least reduce the intensity of certain headaches. Niacin. So most of us know niacin. If you think of niacin, most of us know it from cholesterol side, because we do use niacin-based products to help with controlling cholesterol. So it does help the body to convert food into energy like all B vitamins do, helps with nervous system functioning. And foods that are high in niacin are meat, poultry, fish, and once again, fortified grains, because we tend to leach those out. And the body can also make niacin using the amino acid tryptophan. So it's kind of one of the only ones where you can, there's a small amount that can be made by you. A little bit more about niacin. Niacin deficiency is called pellagra. This condition is basically seen with skin rashes, diarrhea, and dementia. We used to say in med school, the 3Ds: dermatitis, diarrhea, and dementia. That's pellagra, and that's a niacin deficiency. Contraindications to vitamin B3 are people who take it can get skin flushing, and you can also have some itching. Now, just like we saw with some of the other B vitamins, people who have liver disease and who take certain medications should avoid using too much B3. Okay, so keep it within the recommended daily amount, which, as you can see here, is 16 to 18 milligrams per day. B6, pyridoxine, water soluble, found in chicken, fish, whole grains. It is involved in protein metabolism and immune functioning, as well as making neurotransmitters. And it's also good for blood sugar production. We tend to use B6, when you think of nerves, in patients who have diabetes, or some people have neuropathic symptoms, whether it be peripheral neuropathy caused by conditions like diabetes, or even just idiopathic neuropathy, where there really is no reason for it. Just as we age, nerves begin to slow down and die. Using pyridoxine can help to support nerves and may reduce the impact or the progression of neuropathy. Now, it does help to regulate homocysteine, as we saw with one of the other B vitamins. And that's important because remember, homocysteine, high levels, does increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. So a big take home for you guys. Because the plant foods contain a form of B6, which is less available to the body, people who are strict vegans, they do have to tend to go to outside the food store supplementation in order to get a lot of these B vitamins, especially pyridoxine. Now, recommended daily amount, 1.3 to 1.7 milligrams per day. Deficiency in B6 can cause anemia, skin rashes, and some confusion. And severe deficiencies, you can see some neurological problems. An example, like I did mention, would be neuropathy. And high doses can also do the other and lead to nerve damage as well. B12. Everyone knows B12. It's called cobalamin. Now, there are two types, methylcobalamin and cyanocobalamin. Those are the two main types that we see. And as you can see on the slide, methylcobalamin is the more preferred type. The cyano is the more readily available type. So if you had to pick one or the other, I would go with methylcobalamin. Now, like with all other B vitamins, it is water soluble. It does help actually with red blood cell production, which, as you know, red cells carry the oxygen. So it keeps the cells healthy. And that's because it works with DNA production. It helps to also maintain nerve cells and in the creation of neurotransmitters, which are good for all functioning. When you are low on B12, patients tend to complain of feeling fatigue, weak, and there is a type of anemia that can happen because of B12 deficiency. Usually it's called megaloblastic anemia. Neurological problems like memory loss can happen, confusion, and to some extent, you can see some depression as well in patients who are B12 deficient. Excess B12 passes through the urine. So like all the other B vitamins, it is water soluble. And if you take a lot of it, you will pass it through the urine. No issues there. And you don't want to take it if you are allergic to cobalt. That's a very specific allergy. So you'd know if you had an allergy to cobalt. Vitamin C, also water soluble, good for essential for good health, plays a really crucial role in supporting the immune system, as we all know, especially being in cold and flu season. We always advise our patients to make sure you get adequate amounts of vitamin C, preferably from natural sources like oranges, kiwis, berries, bell peppers and leafy greens are foods rich in vitamin C. Vitamin C deficiency is classically known as scurvy, and this dates back to the pirate days when the diet really wasn't the best on the ships. So these people would get fatigue, weakness, and the classical bleeding gums. So now, point to note, you can also see what we call poor wound healing when you are vitamin C deficient. Now, that's because vitamin C itself is important for the formation of collagen. Good to know. Adequate intake of vitamin C can help prevent colds and flus, like we mentioned before. Contraindications, so high doses of Vit C can cause diarrhea. You can get some stomach cramps. So more of those constitutive symptoms that you can see. People with kidney disease and those who take certain medications should avoid high doses of vitamin C just because of interactions. And once again, vitamin C doesn't necessarily damage, it doesn't hurt the kidney. If the kidney is filtering a lot slower than it should, you're going to build up a lot more of some of these vitamins in your system than you need. Recommended amount of vitamin C is 75 to 90 milligrams per day. Now, I know most of us have seen the ads for like the supplement vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams. That is actually okay, once you have good kidney function, but also it's okay for short-term use, because with good kidney function, you're able to actually pass out any excess vitamin C. But it's not recommended to have beyond that amount of vitamin C long-term. Now we're getting into the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin D. So fat-soluble, crucial role in bone health. As you know, it helps with, the utilization and absorption of calcium within the intestines. The body can produce vitamins D actually when it's exposed to sunlight. Now, that is because vitamin D2 is the pro form, and once you get sunlight, it's converted to D3, and that's the active form that we use in our bodies. Now, if you're low, foods that have a good amount of vitamin D are the fatty fish, egg yolks, And of course, there are some fortified dairy products like milk, which they add in the vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency lead to osteoporosis, increase your risk of fractures, and you can see more falls with low vitamin D level. That's because vitamin D is also good for muscle functioning and muscle health as well. Vitamin D is great for the immune system. And food sources, I mentioned, the fatty fish and egg yolks. People with hypercalcemia. Now, what is hypercalcemia? That is elevated calcium in the blood. We should be very careful with those and have them avoid doing excess amounts of vitamin D, because that's going to increase the amount of calcium. Now, recommended amount, typically 600 to 800 IUs per day, but depending on your age and depending on testing, you can do up to 2,000 IUs a day of D3 and be okay. Vitamin E, another fat-soluble vitamin. It is an antioxidant, protecting the cells from damage caused by free radicals. It helps maintain the strength of cell membranes, and it really supports the immune system. So it's found in some nuts, and also most people get the vitamin E from supplements. High doses of E can increase your risk of bleeding. So some patients, when they are getting ready for surgery, the surgeon will tell them, oh, get off all your vitamins. And that's primarily because of the vitamin E, because we know vitamin E actually can help reduce platelet aggregation. That would help in keeping the wound healing nicely. And we also know that it can also affect vitamin K's ability with clotting. So patients who have actually a vitamin K deficiency or a history of stroke or other blood disorders, we actually recommend that they don't do high doses or excess amounts of vitamin E. The recommended amount of vitamin E is about 15 milligrams per day. And like I said, it's good to get it basically from your supplement, or just if you have a regular diet, from that as well. Vitamin K, another fat-soluble vitamin. This one is important for blood clotting. It does so by activating the proteins that are involved in the clotting cascade in the body. So being able to clot after you get a cut on your arm or wherever is aided by the fact that you have good amounts of vitamin K in your system. It does also help to support healthy bones. And that is through activating the proteins involved in the utilization of calcium in the bones. So sometimes what you'll see in some supplements is D3 plus K2. That is because these two vitamins work synergistically in helping maintain strong, healthy bones. Although vitamin K deficiencies are rare, we still know they exist, and we always look out for excessive bleeding, because people who have low vitamin D levels will bleed. Contraindications to high doses of vitamin K are things like blood thinners, like warfarin. So patients who are on that blood thinner warfarin, we always advise them to either avoid starting new foods that are rich in vitamin K, or if they're on a diet that has a certain amount of vitamin K based on when we have a discussion, to stay on that and don't make any changes, because we want to begin to adjust the medications to match your lifestyle. So I know some patients have told me in the past, oh, I can't have vegetables because, vitamin K. No, you can still have vegetables. Just make sure you keep it around the same amounts you do throughout the time while you're on the blood thinner. Okay, recommended daily amount for vitamin K is 90 to 120 micrograms per day for women, 120 to 150 per day for men. Now we're getting into the minerals. Calcium. Important for bodily functions. Calcium and vitamin D go hand in hand for bones, but here we're going to talk about calcium. It's also key for blood clotting, for nerve and muscle function. And that is seen because patients who suffer with hypocalcemia can have issues of muscle spasms and muscle laxity. People who have hypercalcemia kind of have what we call myoclonus, where the muscle just kind of gets stiff. Dietary calcium is found in your classic dairy products, milk, cheese, yogurt. You can also get calcium in leafy green vegetables, and those of us who love sardines. And for those of us who are on the vegan side of things, you can get calcium fortified tofu as a dietary option. So adequate calcium intake is important throughout your life. I mean, from birth to later on, you're in your wonder years. That's important to have adequate amounts of calcium, because as you're growing up, it's good to help build the bones and get you taller and stronger. And as you get older, to maintain bone integrity throughout, and also muscle integrity as we get older. The recommended dietary intake is 1,000 milligrams or 1,500 milligrams per day. But that is that's a generalization, because we tend to do it patient specific, because what we know is too much calcium intake can cause some issues, especially with the cardiovascular system, where we see more calcium build up within the arteries, which is not good. So let's look at some contraindications or some things to consider when supplementing with calcium. So kidney disease. Elevated calcium levels, it can actually damage the kidneys and make your current kidney issues a little bit worse. Hypercalcemia, we mentioned it before, is elevated calcium in the blood. So patients who have this condition, we always take them off of all calcium supplementation. Vitamin D toxicity. So those people who have been taking really high doses of vitamin D in order to help keep their immune system functioning, or because they literally were told that they had a low vitamin D level, too much vitamin D does increase your calcium, because vitamin D is important for calcium absorption in the intestines. So too much vitamin D is also not a good thing, because it does boost your calcium absorption. The cardiac problems you mentioned are typically because of plaque buildup, because one of the key components of plaque in the arteries is calcium. So we want to monitor that. GI problems can happen. Too much calcium can cause nausea. You can get some constipation and some bloating. There are certain medications which you have to be really, really careful of, like thiazide diuretics, corticosteroids, and phenytoin. These can interact with the calcium supplements, and they can affect, the calcium can affect their absorption or metabolism overall. There are some pre-existing medical conditions which you have to be careful of when advising people on vitamins, things like sarcoidosis, hyperparathyroidism, and Paget's. All of these are elevated calcium states. So we always advise patients who have these three conditions to limit, or in some cases, no extra calcium in their diet. Potassium, essential mineral required for normal cell functioning. So potassium actually is pretty important for those small enzyme reactions in the cells that we go through and that keep us alive. Actually, it's found in a variety of foods. Everyone knows bananas, rich source of potassium. Ripe bananas, by the way. A lot of vegetables have it. You can get it from dairy products and even meats. Now, funny, there is no recommended daily intake for potassium. However, it's thought anywhere from 1,600 to 2,000 milligrams, which this is the MEQs, the 40 to 50 per day, is adequate. Now, if you have good kidney function, that's okay. What we know is as kidney function begins to dip as we age, or because of medical reasons, you want to be very careful with your potassium supplementation. So some benefits of potassium: regulate blood pressure, maintain a good fluid balance, supports a healthy heart. We also know potassium is important for muscle function, because a lot of times you can get cramping in the legs or muscles because of low potassium. And it plays a role in, well, there we go, nerves. Can help to reduce the risk of strokes and osteoporosis. So I mentioned chronic kidney disease before. We also know that hyperkalemia is the condition when you have an elevated amount of potassium. Very dangerous, because it can actually cause cardiac arrest if it's left unchecked. And medications that you normally take, ACE inhibitors of blood pressure, angiotensin receptor blockers, potassium sparing diuretics, all those can increase your potassium levels. And typically for patients, it's all dose dependent. So the higher you go in dosage, we tend to do labs every 3 to 6 months based on your need, to make sure that we're not, spiking that potassium in the system. To note, alcoholism has been shown to people who have alcoholism have been shown to have increased levels of potassium. Just the mere fact that once they develop cirrhosis, that affects the liver's ability to remove the excess potassium from your body. So it is important to note at this point. Let's talk magnesium. Important for protein synthesis, energy production, helps to regulate blood pressure, muscle, and nerve function. Common sources: vegetables, nuts, seeds. As you can see, magnesium deficiency can lead to heart disease. You can see it lead to diabetes, as well as osteoporosis. Excessive magnesium can cause issues like diarrhea and nausea. Now, that's typically if you take magnesium citrate. That's the one that is typically shown to give you a lot more issues with the loose bowels, but some patients have noticed it with magnesium oxide as well. Now, the recommended daily allowance for magnesium is about 400 to 420 milligrams per day for men, 310 to 320 for women. And magnesium, that should be glycinate, my apologies. Glycinate is one of the best oral supplements that I know of because it's most bioavailable. Also good to note that magnesium itself is really good for nerve health. Now, people who have kidney disease are at increased risk for magnesium toxicity. Magnesium, it does not damage the kidney directly, but because the kidneys, as they begin to decline, the filtration process is not as good. So you find magnesium builds up in the system. So, and high levels of magnesium can cause the heart to slow down. So you can get bradycardia as well as which can lead to cardiac arrest. Now, people with GI issues, Crohn's disease, any kind of inflammatory bowel disease, or anything that affects GI absorption of magnesium can cause low magnesium levels or magnesium deficiency. And of course, when you look at other medications like antibiotics and diuretics, you want to be careful. And if you're taking a magnesium supplement, you don't want to take it the same time you take some of the other medications, just because magnesium itself can actually decrease or increase the level of that particular medication in the body. And vice versa, some medications can affect magnesium absorption as well. So it's just important, if you're taking supplements, not to take them with your regular medications, just to be safe. So individuals undergoing dialysis or who have hyperparathyroidism are also contraindicated to magnesium, to having excessive amounts of magnesium in their diet. Very important. Iron. So we all know iron. It's the driver of iron deficiency anemia when it's low. It's an essential mineral required for oxygen transportation because it is the heme, which is iron, that's in the hemoglobin that binds to the oxygen that travels throughout our system. There are two types of iron that we need to know of. There's the heme iron and the non-heme iron. So the heme iron is found in animal products like meat, poultry, and seafood. The non-heme is found in some animal, but mainly plant-based foods like beans and lentils. Now, the heme accounts for 10% of your dietary iron intake. The non-heme is a lot more. So that's more the vegan and vegetarian. So iron absorption is improved by eating iron-rich foods along with vitamin C. That's because anything that has vitamin C or ascorbic acid does help to improve the absorption of the iron itself in the gut. Now, it is good to note that people who love teas and coffee, especially teas, they can have decreased iron absorption because in certain teas, the tannins or the oxalates in the teas can bind the iron in the gut and make it difficult for it to be absorbed through your GI tract. The recommended daily allowance of iron is 8 milligrams a day for men, 18 for women, and 27 if pregnant, and 9 if still lactating. So some contraindications to iron usage. So hereditary hemochromatosis, this is more of a genetic disorder of iron overload. So you want to make sure you're not taking foods that are rich in iron. Regular old iron overload, which typically happens after someone who is taking way too much iron supplement, or you've had a lot of blood transfusion because of surgeries, or things like hemophiliacs. These are the ones you want to be careful of, because iron overload damages the liver, can lead to liver cirrhosis, which can lead to cancer. So individuals with inflammatory bowel disease, that's like Crohn's and UC, they should also avoid consuming too much iron. So I want to talk about the other minerals that, just to kind of give a little bit, a touch on each one. These are ones that you'll commonly see on the side bottle, the side panel of your vitamin bottle. So we'll start off with zinc. Zinc is really good, found in meat, seafood, and dairy products. It's excellent for immune support. We know cold and flu season, everyone's up on their zinc. Essential to help activate the immune cells and critical in fighting off infections. It's key in the healing process, where zinc is also involved in to help wound healing and that kind of stuff. Copper found in shellfish, nuts, and seeds. Copper has really good antioxidant properties. It's an important component to the antioxidant enzyme superoxide dismutase, which is your enzyme that helps with getting rid of and neutralizing free radicals in the body, which can speed up the aging process and increase your risk of disease. And for heart health, copper is important as it helps to produce a molecule in hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen in your blood. Now, zinc and copper are pretty cool because what we do know is that zinc and copper, their relationship is important for neurological functioning with regards to cognitive impairment. So what we do know is that having these two in good balance does help to reduce your risk of dementia. And that is primarily because of their function in the hippocampus in the brain. Selenium, good one, found in Brazil nuts. We were at a conference and one of the docs said that just taking 2 Brazil nuts a day, the full-size Brazil nuts, is enough to give you your selenium for that particular day. So that's one. So those of you like nuts, Brazil nuts, a great source of selenium. You can also get it from seafoods, organ meats, as well as whole grains. Very good antioxidant properties. It does help to reduce the damage caused by free radicals and oxidative stress, which also worsens aging. And selenium is very important for thyroid functioning. So it's essential for proper functioning of a thyroid gland because it does help in the actual receptors that help your body turn over T4 to T3, which is the active form of levothyroxine going into liothyronine. So it's important to have a good amount of selenium in your vitamin in order to be able to have good thyroid functioning. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was at the conference, they recommended 200, I think, micrograms a day. Now, that is for those who actually are low or have a thyroid issue. If you don't, just whatever is on that multivitamin, I think at least 15 micrograms is good. Chromium, found in whole grains, meats, and seafood. Chromium actually is really good for blood sugar control, essential for that, and it helps regulate the insulin levels and improves insulin sensitivity. So those of us who have diabetes or pre-diabetes, hyperglycemia, or insulin resistance, any one of those, chromium is a good micronutrient to be on because it does help to improve your insulin resistance. We also know chromium has been shown to help with weight management, and that primarily is by curbing food cravings and also helping patients with insulin resistance overall. So these two are really good micronutrients. So I know we kind of went through a lot, and I want to thank you for joining me tonight as we took a brief discussion into supplements, whether we look at vitamins and minerals, and I hope you guys enjoyed.